Digital Health Talks. This is Megan Antonelli, and I am so excited to be here today with Gary Forbes. I could give Gary a long and amazing introduction, but I want to let him do it himself. I am thrilled to have met him recently. He is a former NBA player and the founder of the Gary Forbes Foundation, and now working on this amazing company that is so well aligned with the work that we're doing here at Health Impact called Soul Survivors. Hi, Gary. How are you today?
How you doing? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell our audience a little bit about your background and your journey from NBA player to founder of Soul Survivors.
I was born in Panama, moved to Brooklyn, New York when I was around 4 years old. Fell in love with the game of basketball, and that was it. That was the spark plug for my passion for doing something, and I wanted to become a basketball player and an NBA player. So it's something that I wrote down, and plan A was to make the NBA. Plan B all the way to Z was to make plan A work. So that was my passion, my drive, and to accomplish that dream was an amazing feat. I think it's something that I kind of thank my dad for giving me the vision of optimism, or the characteristic of optimism, and kind of stubbornness as well, because you need those kind of things to overcome certain challenges. And I've had a few, being a type 1 diabetic. I'm one of 3 players to have ever played in the NBA with type 1 diabetes. So,
wow, yeah.
So that alone, now that I look back at it, hindsight, it was a testament to just, resilience and optimism and just hard work.
Absolutely. I was just watching, and I know we were talking a little bit. You have a little boy. I have 2 big boys, but I was just watching, I think it was Derek Jeter on, sort of being, the resilience required to kind of fail 70% of the time, and in baseball, certainly in basketball, you want to make every shot, but there's a lot that you miss. And to get to that level of performance, you've got to see a lot. Which is, going to equip you very well for launching a digital health startup kind of, model within healthcare, because it's not an easy space. But tell us a little bit about, I know that you are a type 1 diabetic. What was that like being in the NBA and having to manage that?
Honestly, I was very fortunate to have, my dad, who was also a type 1 diabetic, but he was an Olympic lifter, worked on the Panama Canal, was a cyclist. So I never looked at having or managing type 1 diabetes as a crutch. It was almost like a springboard to do great things. It's like, I have diabetes and I'm doing, this. So, I had a chip on my shoulder. It was something that I hid, due to, the, I guess, stigma and, the way people have a perspective of, people living with diabetes and what they can and can't do. But that, all those experiences, playing overseas, playing in the NBA, going through all the different experiences that I did, it led me to create the Soul Survivors platform, which is a comic book platform series about children with chronic health conditions, but they're superheroes. So I took my experiences from traveling all around the world, meeting different people, friends, family. I believe in the world of health, everyone knows somebody with something. We're like 1 degree or 2 degrees separated. We either know a friend or a family member, someone with cancer, diabetes, autism. And I thought that, this, since it's being in our, human experience, we should kind of know about it, bridge the gap of, awareness, continue to fund research and, empower families and children that are going through these challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so important. And I mean, basically, so you're taking the diabetes and, your experience, it's like your superpower in some
Hmm.
way to, sort of
Hmm.
overcoming that and then putting it into this comic book series, which is awesome. And, for anyone who hasn't seen it, you can go to the website Soul Survivors, and it is an amazing series of books that really highlights, puts these children in these roles. And it is available on the website and all that. So, and it's great. In terms of the response, have you done any like readings, taking it to classes and seeing what the kids are? Yours is a little young, but I'm sure he
Yeah,
loves
yeah,
it.
yeah.
But tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, since launching my first volume in 2023, I've been to several schools to do book readings, presentations and things like that. I've had it at one library in Miami, which is a great turnout, a book signing, and I've sold in different, different areas. The goal now is to obviously expand and scale the knowledge of soul survivors and to empower pretty much the world. This is like a global impact. I did research the other day. There's around 300 to 400 million children around the globe that are, managing chronic health conditions. So this is something that I intend to, reach the masses and kind of bridge that gap, like I said, of awareness, and empower people. Like I said, I was very fortunate to have the, not have the, oh, woe is me, feel bad for me. It's like, I kind of, even in the verbiage in the soul survivors, I don't call it an illness. I don't call it a disease. I call it a health challenge. So it's something that I'm trying to, change, everyone's mindset and as well as educate, the world besides empowering.
Yeah. Well, it's so important. And I think especially with children, and then also, certain communities in terms of that, both, as you mentioned, stigma of health, but also fear, of what does it mean to have a certain condition or a chronic
Mhm.
illness. And, the fact is, as you said, everybody does at some point either come in contact with or unfortunately have their own illness. So making ourselves more comfortable with that and putting that in the dialogue is so much more, the more we talk about that, especially with young children, the better.
Mhm.
So I think it's such a great, mission and vehicle for doing that, because it's so hard. I mean, I think back to when I was a kid. I mean, and we had, of course, Sesame Street, and we had, the Electric Company, and there was some science, and, remember Mr. Peabody,
Yep.
or whatever, where you learn that. But there's not that much of that in culture now. There, frankly, is a lot of Marvel,
Yep.
a lot of superhero, and a
Yep.
lot of super athletes, and it's a lot of looking at these people here, and forget, as you get into social media and
Mhm.
social, where everyone is just sort of perfect and amazing. So
Mhm.
this idea of being able to give kids something to identify with,
Yep.
and making it normal as it is, right?
Yes. Yes. That's the whole point. Is to, just continue to raise awareness. It's something that's in our everyday experience. I've had a couple of occasions where people said, "Oh, you don't look like a diabetic," or "Oh, you shouldn't eat this." And it's not, I don't look at that stigma. That's just, kind of, in a sense, kind of ignorance. They just don't know, and it's my, I'm in a space where that I can educate, especially children. My idea is that if I can plant this seed at a very early age when they're sponges, by the time they get to adults, the world in health and wellness will be totally different because they have these figures that representation in a positive way.
Yeah. No, so important. And, forget that it is also books and reading and being involved in that, which they're not doing enough of either,
Yeah.
from what I can tell, both my own firsthand experience and what I managed to gather online. Tell me a little bit about, when you think back as a diabetic in the MBA, what did that look like? I mean, was it, I know you sort of conquered it, but in terms of the management of it, or how you also were able to kind of turn it into your superpower, if you will.
Right. I was super fortunate, playing in the NBA. This is like a, $1 billion, company. And I had team doctors and trainers who were really, really good at, making sure I had the, right products, right medications, right type of treatments, food, rest, and all these different things. And I think for me, having basketball something as a passion, something that I love, it took my mind away from whatever pressures that there may be of managing type 1 diabetes. And there are challenges. But I think having something that was outside of the norm, I guess, in the sense that I'm living it, it really took away that, I guess, just thinking about, managing type 1 diabetes or the usual usual things that, people think of what will happen, if this, if I don't do this or I do that. So all these different, challenges that the mass majority of people that are dealing with these challenges, I didn't have to, necessarily do that.
Right. Because you had those that help with like diet and
Yep.
nutrition and, certainly expert professional,
Right.
help. So, not everybody gets, unfortunately, but,
Yes.
But certainly learned a lot from that, I am sure. In terms of it's not just diabetes. You also have superheroes with other chronic illnesses. What are some of the other illnesses that are
autism? So there's a representation of autism, Crohn's disease, cerebral palsy, tuberous sclerosis, leukemia, mental health condition, and the goal is to create a superhero for every single childhood health challenge or kind of health challenge that there is, creating a health marvel world. So to, just to have these different organizations and have this representation of a superhero. I think that, I don't know, probably you could agree with me. It's like when you look at these commercials about, a child being diagnosed with, diabetes or cancer, it's kind of like the sad kind of story. And not saying that it's not, but I don't think there's enough representation or highlights of the ones that do overcome or, empowerment.
Right. Well, and the power of both positivity and having that positive modeling is so important, in healthcare and everything, right? And how have you kind of developed the characters, and where do you see them going? Sort of, what is it a ultimate universe with lots and lots of stories, or
Yes.
what's the vision?
The vision is for it to just have to be a world of its own, to have the communities, the communities help create this universe. I got the concepts. I created the concepts from kind of like my childhood. I have characters that I kind of created in the scope of Thundercats, RoboCop, the TV show Dinosaurs. It was kind of like if I had to do a comparison, not really a comparison, but if I had to do, it's like a mixture between X-Men, Captain Planet, and Harry Potter, in a sense, like a little mixture of those.
I love it.
And I see my vision is for these characters to, take on a life of its own. I envision apps, video games, toys, merchandise, clothing, and especially in the world of health and tech. This is a perfect, vehicle to carry out the missions of these organizations.
Yeah. Well, and I know, and we talked about this a little bit. I mean, just back to that sort of education piece, and both the education and the identification, and of course the misinformation that's out there. I mean, as kids get a little bit older and they have that independence and the autonomy to be searching for things and stuff, but to have that sort of reinforced, particularly some of the mental health challenges and such, like, where there is a lot of education about it, but is it in children's hands? Not at all. And is it, sort of accessible to them? So I see so many places where, certainly like in a children's hospital and a pediatrics hospital where the, clinicians could use this as tools, whether it's in book form or apps. And to have those, whether they become kind of, personal avatars or the ability to do that, that could be great.
Yeah, that's the vision. The vision is also to have these these characters be pretty much the face of these organizations. And like you said, it can be something that's pretty much to have a mind of its own. The characters, I think, will be something that can change the stigma, I guess, in a sense,
Right.
of what these organizations represent, and it removes, I think, the fear, in health and wellness, because I'm sure there's a lot, especially, parents dealing with children in chronic health condition space.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think also in certain communities, I mean, you mentioned that you were an immigrant and you came to Brooklyn. And I think there's a long history of the African American Black communities in this country and not having a trust, built with the American healthcare system, for very good reasons. And there's a lot that we have to do to kind of overcome that. So are there particular areas in the book that you're addressing those disparities and that kind of education?
I'm more so in a sense, not putting race and like kind of in that space, because I think none of these health challenges care if you're white, Asian, African American, Latino.
Right.
Every one of these health challenges affects everyone. Obviously, more so in certain spaces, but I wanted to kind of more so highlight, everyone, every child, every type of family, and empower the conversation so that the people or the families that are in these underprivileged communities now have a voice of representation, because now it's just talked about so much.
Right. Good. Good. Yeah, I think that's also really important. And I think that, just the, representing the diversity, that this does happen to everyone. Everyone goes through it. When it comes to like with autism and some of the other mental health conditions, challenges, the health challenges, as you said, what are some of the areas that you explore? Like, do they go through kind of adventures? Are they, what are their experiences within the book that are vehicles for educating?
Right. So I did so my thing is more so like on building community and teamwork. So I have them, it's called the Confidence Quest. It's kind of the name Soul Survivors is kind of play on words, soul being the only one, which, I've known from experience. I've always been the only one with type 1 diabetes or a chronic health condition on the team. And I'm sure, when these children are in the hospital, they feel like, they're by themselves, they're alone. So that's where the name Soul comes from. And they're also sneakerheads. So, from the sole of their feet. But they go through this confidence quest to kind of prepare for the real challenges that's going on in Galaxy 3, where they live at, where they all live. And it's about teamwork and learning about each other and the group of soul survivors and to become soul survivors. So I'm obviously, being an athlete, big on teamwork, and I know how much that plays a role in winning. And I think if these children can learn about each other and learn about their conditions and have, signals or signs for when something is going wrong, or to make sure, each of their, teammates or, friends are good. I think it builds a different space. I have a vision of, the child who's either getting bullied in school from, having leukemia in his hair, or his or her hair is falling out now. He or she is the cool kid in class because Soul Survivors is on TV and, they have superpowers. And now, it kind of changes the narrative of these health challenges. And it's like it's education piece. Now, like I said, is if you're learning about these health challenges at a very young age, you have a different perspective when you get older.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, it's also the name of it sounds like a really good video game. Not that I want to encourage kids to play video games, but it does sound like a great, game for them to be playing. And that idea of the confidence quest and the challenge could be really, I can see it. I can see the vision. So, and I think as healthcare also for our kids goes more virtual, that ability to make that engaging. I mean, I was actually on a virtual appointment with my son this morning. It was very early in the morning, and he, was wrapped up in his blanket, like looking at the phone and talking to the doctor. But about 15 minutes in, he's like, but if it was maybe a bit more dynamic, if there was a bit more going on, he might have stayed more engaged. I mean, I was lucky to get the 15 minutes, but this ability to kind of gamify health education through these characters, I think is really an exciting one.
That's the goal.
So tell us a little bit about what that journey is going to look like. What does that business model for you look like? What are you looking for from other businesses now?
So in the stage of now looking to partner with certain companies, one of the things that I'm adding to the Soul Survivors platform is a one-stop online marketplace that offers a wide range of products from custom apparel with the Soul Survivors characters to specialized health tools, educational resources. And the goal in that space is to, create a community and members and, continue to raise awareness, empower families that are going through these health challenges. And we're in a stage right now of raising capital to perform these tasks, to hire and expand kind of the scale of the company to reach, the world. And that's going to take, a lot of work, a lot of experts in certain areas. In the game areas, I see, Soul Survivors in the app, and having these augmented reality characters change how health and wellness is viewed, especially for children. Like you said, your son, only having like a 10 to 15 minute, attention, to the doctor. And, I'm big on kind of simplifying health and wellness. Drink, good water, eat healthy, exercise, get some sleep, and, take some vital minerals and you'll be all right.
Right. Yeah, no, back to the basics. And that's, I'm a lot older than you, but when we were kids, that's what the message was. And it was pretty simple. And now, it's, am I supposed to take creatine? Do I do my should I do my pre-workout? The decisions get bigger and more complicated, and they should just drink water and get good sleep, and we'd be in a better place. But there's everybody's got something to sell, and to our kids, but it is not always for the best. But this is, and I love it. I think in terms of that, the pivot, the expansion from the books to the sort of digital health approach to education with the kids, there's a lot of potential to that. And I imagine, you've got a good network built around all the teams you've played for, and even globally, that there's, the opportunity to translate and get it across to all those hands as well. In terms of what we like to talk about here in, sort of that digital health space, but we always like to talk about the good things happening in healthcare. And sometimes, depending on what's going on in the world, it can be harder to find the good things happening in healthcare. Mm-hmm. But when you look into the healthcare space, especially coming from your background, right? A patient, an athlete, with great care, what are some of the things that you see that are encouraging, that kind of excite you about getting into the healthcare space?
Now being on the outside, not being an athlete, not having those, trainers and team doctors, it is different. Just even going, getting insurance or, going to the doctor, it's a lot different. But I just recently went to the Vive conference in Tennessee, and to see all of the, the health tech and, being able to be at your home and be able to virtually speak to a doctor, or, AI kind of generated doctor. It's very interesting. And I do hope that, all these things lead to a positive effect. But the world is literally, just, flipped and changed. My grandmother passed away recently. She lived till 92, and she was in a time where, she rode horse and buggies, and now, we're having a doctor's meeting, through this virtual kind of, tool. And it's very, very unique. It's very, interesting. It's very cool to see. I just hope for these different, this health challenges, for there to be a positive effect, using, technology. Hopefully technology and, nature, can, mix and, be able to, make good decisions, and, for these, patients that are going through these challenges.
100%. Yeah, no. And I think that's what I love about Soul Survivors is it's keeping that, healthcare story so human.
Mhm.
And that, and then there's this potential for the technology to really amplify it and make it accessible for so many people. And that's, I think the power of tech makes the access question or challenge, it addresses the access challenge. There's still the question and the, time will tell, and we have to make sure it does work from the quality perspective,
Yes.
right? But
Yes.
certainly with, the more simple you keep it, the better. So, well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I am so excited to see what you're doing and to feature Soul Survivors at Health Impact. I think for those who haven't heard, our focus in June is going to be around superheroes of healthcare. So there's nothing, the Soul Survivors is going to be a great story, and I can't wait to share it with our audience there as well. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And thanks, Gary, for being with us.
Thank you. And don't forget to go on the website, www.thesoulsurvivors, SOLESURVIVORS.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And of course, as Gary said, follow them there, go check it out. Yes. And you can join us at Health Impact Live. And until next week, Megan Antonelli, reminding you that the future of healthcare is being built today, one innovation at a time.